Welcome back to the Valley today. A new bill from Minnesota Senate Republicans aims to adjust the timeline on certain education mandates to lower the costs for school districts.
Lawmakers highlighting the bill at the state capitol yesterday. Valley News Team's Quinn Gorham explaining this morning why they say they hope the law can lift a weight off the shoulders of districts.
Last year, Minnesota passed a historic $2.2 billion education bill, a bill that sent money to districts across the state. Now, Senate Republicans are saying that money isn't enough to keep up with education mandates. GOP lawmakers highlighted a new bill Tuesday that would allow districts to defer those mandates for up to 3 years. Instead of enacting those new mandates immediately, lawmakers say the bill would allow them to do so over time, investing in training and overtime for those programs. Any funding tied to those mandates would stay within the district, allowing them to use a fund transfer to allocate to other areas. The bill only applies to mandates from the 2023 Education Omnibus Bill. Republican lawmakers believe the new bill wouldn't repeal any new mandates, but would put them off to be implemented at a later date.
So this is not repealing any of those mandates. It is just going to allow local school districts that ability to say we need more time to incorporate this one into our system to make it work here.
It should be noted that last year's Education Omnibus Bill passed with just a single Republican vote in the Senate. Senator Jason Rarick, who's sponsoring the bill, said he, quote, has no illusions this will pass this year, meaning he's likely not optimistic this is going to get DFL support. Still, he says he's going to make an effort to reach across the aisle and try to get a couple of DFL senators to vote for the bill, saying he thinks there's support among a couple of lawmakers on the other side. Reporting in St. Paul, I'm Quinn Gorham.
New legislation includes a claim that lapses in education funding had nothing to do with mandates, but rather declining enrollment instead.
The senators say they stand by the education standards passed last year. We'll be